In this lesson we're going to look at the harmonic structure for our Task 1C house with Seven Nation Army arrangement. Now it's really important that from an early stage you get all these fundamental elements down for your arrangement or composition. Now in the last few lessons we looked at getting the rhythmic elements down and getting the structure in a kind of workable state, but it's not until you actually put down the harmony or the chord progressions and the melodies that actually start seeing if your ideas are actually going to take shape. So it's really worth getting these ideas down early so that any mistakes that are made can be quickly corrected before you take your ideas in completely the wrong direction. Okay, with that in mind, I've just kind of written down a basic structure that I want to follow. Now the chords that I'm going to follow are down here, and they're based on the Seven Nation Army chords. And they've just been adapted ever so slightly to kind of make it a bit more interesting and fit more with my house. So the fundamental chords for the Seven Nation Army, all the way through their little riff, is this E minor and C. Okay, during their chorus section there's a few other chords, and I've just kind of incorporated these. So as you can see, my development sections are going to stick solidly with this A minor and C, and then when it gets to this crossover section here, it's going to be like my chorus. I'm going to give it a G, A minor, E minor and C, and then for my middle section, which is this one here, I'm going to give it a G, E minor, C and A minor. Now I've deliberately stayed very basic with my chord structures, okay, and you can take these a lot further. One of the main reasons I've stayed basic, or two of the main reasons: first, I really didn't want to influence you too much. Okay, I want you to kind of work these things out for yourself. So when you're thinking about chords and you're thinking about laying down some more complex chords like 7th chords or 9th chords, 13ths, added whatever, these are really coming from you rather than something that I've said. So I'm giving you the basics of what I would do, but I would definitely take this further. Now the other reason I've kept these particular chords basic is because I intend to use some of the 7ths and the 3rds in other parts, so other instruments, and that's how I'm going to build up my harmonies even further than that. So it's a good grounding, and it doesn't overcomplex what I'm doing at an early stage. So with that in mind, I've just started blanketing out my whole piece so that I can basically see if all of what I've done down here will actually work. Okay, so let me just pull that down a bit. So I've just blanketed out, and now what I've done is I've put them on this electric piano, and I've drowned the electric piano in this reverb here. So it's just a standard piano. If I bring up the actual preset that I'm using, it's this Yamaha grand piano. Now all I've done so far, and I'll probably change it a bit more, is just put more reverb on. Now the reason for this is because in my pump up the volume track they have these sustained piano chords that kind of just happen to go gang, and then they won't happen for another 2 bars, and they'll come in again. And the impact of that basic piano chord with all that reverb is quite good actually. So I thought this would be not only a good way of me putting down my basic structure, but it'll also be a good way of kind of incorporating the piano with those block chords. Now the two things that I've done: firstly, rather than using just root chords, I've used inversions. And secondly, rather than just using these padded chords that go all the way through the bar, I've kind of alternated them between a stab and a pad, and that just builds up a little bit more interest. There's loads of ways I could have taken this. I could have made these arpeggios. I could have, broken chords. I could have made the rhythms a lot more intricate. Now, I just didn't want that. The piano isn't really going to be a main part of my house music, but I wanted to incorporate it as part of the house sort of style that's coming from Pump Up the Volume. So that's why I've left it deliberately basic at the moment. Now as far as inversions go, you would never see a pop song playing root chords, and a lot of my students, this is how they play root chords. When I say root chord, it basically means if you were playing a C chord, you'd play C, E and G in that order. Okay, if you were playing an E minor chord, you would play E, G and B in that order. Now as you can see, this is an E minor chord, but rather than playing the E down here, I've inverted it and I've put the E at the top. Okay, so this is giving me my inversion, and it's also leading me quite swiftly into my C chord, which you can see I don't even have to change this note, and I only move this note by a semitone, and then this note stays the same. So the actual change between the two chords is really clean and smooth. Whereas if they were both root chords, you know, it would be C, E and G there, and E, G and B there. So the jump is quite massive and it wouldn't be smooth. I think that's pretty much all I have to say. I just want to show you how this is working, and I do want to say that although I've planned this quite meticulously, there is actually a few errors. Now, I deliberately haven't fixed these errors because I want to show you that mistakes can happen. If you don't get your melody and harmony down at an early stage, sometimes it's going to be impossible to fix, or not impossible, but massively hard. If you start basing all of your other instruments around these particular harmonies, and then you realise, oh my god, it doesn't fit with the melody, which is what's happening with my particular melody, or is going to happen. I can see that already. Then you have to change loads of different parts. So it's really important to get the basics of your chord structure down, and then put the melody on. Make sure everything works before you move on. So I'll deal with that in the next lesson, but let me just show you where I'm at with this piece. So just going to do a bit of listening. So here's where I'm at. I'm going to play it from the beginning. Okay, so as you can see, that's not massively interesting at the minute, but we can build up interest in the other parts. This is just our foundation. So I'm sticking with that E minor and C, and I may change that a little bit, and I've already started doing a little bit of arranging. And as you can see, I'm starting to drop bits out just to try and break up that monotony, break up that repetition. Because if you just had that riff playing all the way through it and the drums playing all the way through it, and you know, these piano chords doing exactly the same, it does get just slightly, you know, repetitive, and you will lose marks if it is too repetitive. Okay, so the first thing I've done here is in the break, I'm just not going to add the chords. It's going to be a full-on break. Okay, and then in this E minor we've changed the chords. So let's see how this break is working now then. Okay, so that sounds, to my ear and your ear, that will sound absolutely fine. No errors there. But there is a massive error in there, and it won't become obvious until we put the melody in. And I'll do that in the next lesson. So, but for now, work out your chord structures, write them in your notepad, or write them however you're going to write them down. Get them put onto the timeline, listen to your piece, change what you need to do, make them more complex, work out the rhythms that you want to do, and then I'll see you in the next lesson for the melody.